Welcome to the Truth Has No Sides podcast. These conversations will be had to expand the minds and the consciousness of you, the listener. If you like the content of the show, please like the video and subscribe to our channel to help this message be seen and heard by more people. Thank you for being here and enjoy the episode. Okay, 2 red dots. Today's guest is Megan Sewell. She is a friend of Annie, my cousin. Annie had incredible things to say about Megan. And as usual, we just like to make sure recording and let the guest tell the world and our listeners who they are, what they're about, and then we will just go off on our usual tangents. Questions will arise. So Megan, please.
Hi, hello to your audience, and thank you for having me, Charlie. These are fun, these are just like fun navigations of life, just to explore a little bit about who we are as people on this earth. And as I am right now, I'm a mother and a wife, and I'm an acupuncturist by trade. That's what I do day in and day out. I see patients in the realm of fertility and psychological emotional stress and physical pain. So that's what I do. I own a clinic. It's called Wild Sage Acupuncture in Cottonwood Heights, Utah. And I'm also deeply in love with ceremonial life and, ritual and things that bring us closer to our true nature and to our own authenticity. And I think that's a lot about what your podcast is about and how people find that and how people explore those areas of life of our interior world. And those are the things that I just love talking about. So here we are together.
So I'm going to change this up today because I've done quite a few podcasts that are going to come out over the next month or two. Every one of them, you and 3 others this week, have spoken about true nature. And
yeah.
We've kind of just gone off on other tangents with the others, but you brought it up. It's Friday.
Yeah.
True nature. Explain that to the audience. Let's give them an idea of what you mean by that.
What do I mean by that? Well, I live my life in a way where I need help from various guiding principles in life. And I feel like when we can show up and choose to be present in our lives, when we can speak the truth without blame or judgment about what's true for us, what's going on for us inside, within our relationships, within our jobs, within our, the various roles that we live in our life, when we can really show up and pay attention to what has deep heart and meaning in our lives, and then also sort of be open and unattached to how it unfolds in our life. I feel like when we can organize our orientation to our lives in those ways, then we really have the ability to show up in our original medicine, in the ways that we are here to deliver a message that is unique to our own. And I feel like true nature really is just, it feels like a sense of belonging to ourselves.
Okay.
In a nutshell.
That kind of sums up authenticity. And it was, I never can remember the guy's name, but I've spent so many years with my teacher listening to other great teachers, Adi Ashanti, those guys, and they always talk about love being the highest frequency. And they've actually done studies that authenticity is, because authenticity includes love, the love of what you do, the love of who you are, the love of your soul's purpose, the love of others. But it also doesn't mean you get rid of the dark sides of your nature, because
so true.
We wouldn't exist without it. As much as me personally, I would love to get rid of them because they're exhausting. And if you are on the spiritual path, you've done everything under the sun to try and get rid of them, misunderstanding that, thinking we're going to get rid of all the things we don't like and it's just going to flood with good.
Oh my gosh, so true. I feel like that's a really big trap that we can all get into, like positive mindset, positive affirmation. There is a whole other side to our psyche that is there to teach us who we are, what we want, what our boundaries are, and what deeply turns us on in life. And I feel like that shadow work that you're talking about we can't get away from that. There's absolutely no way. We have to bring it in. I think it was Carl Jung that said if we deny the subconscious, then we are at risk of manifesting that in our lives and calling it fate.
Yeah, that sums up probably 99% of the people, and that includes myself.
Yeah,
that is
absolutely.
that's the toughest thing I think about this physical existence is having this knowledge, learning this knowledge, knowing this knowledge, and still having it negatively impact your life, right? To see how many people have near death experiences and they talk about the other side and everything else. And they always say that we came here to experience what we're not.
Ooh, yeah. Excuse me.
So, oh no, you're fine. Um, again, much,
To come here to experience what we are not, to
yes,
then discover who we are through that, right? Through the fire. It's like the
apparently,
phoenix burning up.
apparently, apparently, I wish there was an easier way. But they talk about that other side just being very simple, very easy.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever you think comes up. So that means negative thoughts, positive thoughts. It is immediate. So we come here in this physical form to have resistance, to have limits, and to, like that Darius Wright guy. I mean, the guy who does the out of body experiences for people. We are here to experience what we're not. So,
Mm-hmm.
hmm.
How do you find that useful? Do you find that useful?
I do for my evolution, but again, that evolution comes with resistance. That evolution has always come in the last minutes after I've tried everything else and I've been pushed into a corner and I'm forced to change.
Mm,
And that is a very it's just part of my process, apparently.
yeah.
I always push to that limit when I know what I should have done for a while ago,
Oh,
for some time. This
yes.
podcast, my
Yeah.
my fiance has told me about this and other things I'm currently doing. Oh, for a year, 2 years, and it didn't feel right. It wasn't, in my opinion, it wasn't the right time because when I finally started to click, when all this started to click and it felt right, it just poured out.
Mm,
All the
that
guests started.
isn't that.
Yeah, all the guests started coming. The platform for Riverside was easy. But yeah, again, for the fifth time in the last 2 minutes, I really wish it was easier.
I hear you. I hear you. That friction is uncomfortable, right? It's the friction within, but that is I don't think there's any chance of evolution without friction
No.
like that. Because if we're just going to live status quo and to live what other people think we should do, what we believe our parents should do, what our schools taught us, how we think we should behave as parents or as in relationship, then we box ourselves off to what actually wants to come through.
Yeah, there was the study from NASA where they followed thousands of kids. 98% were considered genius at 5, 30% at 10, 12% at 15. By the time the kids were adults, it was 2%.
Oh my God, isn't that incredible? Wow, that says a lot about our society,
About
doesn't
us,
it?
that's 1,000
Us.
kids, but we're included in how we take this vast resource of consciousness and funnel it down
Yep.
by those who love us, by
Well,
our teachers.
absolutely, and it's also part of the evolution of the brain from childhood development. Is there are mass amount of synapses in the brain, and they start dying off as we grow up. So it matches exactly what you're talking about.
Well, and I wonder why those synapses die off. Because as kids, we have imaginary friends. I'm pretty sure
Yes.
most of those imaginary friends are not imaginary.
Oh,
They see things. You hear of all these stories, and people say, "Oh, kids got a great imagination." As we learn more, it's
yeah.
not an imagination. And I think those synapses die because someone keeps telling them that's wrong.
Shut it off.
Shut it
Hmm.
off. Don't do that.
I don't know what you mean.
I don't know
There's
what
a
you
lot
mean.
of that. Yep.
Sure as shit.
Oh,
Talk about that in church. Like, I mean, that's probably why our brain starts dying off, which goes to that
it is.
next box, which then
Yeah.
is overloaded, overcapacitated. And like Einstein said, the same mind that created the problem can't solve it.
Yes.
So the mind creates the problem, and we're still digging through those 80,000 thoughts to try and solve it. And I think that's part of why things are so slow for us.
That's right. Yep. And I feel like it is, it's like a consolidation of the self to be. something, right? Where ultimately in higher consciousness, nothing exists, right? We are no thing when we can really access those realms of ultimate universal consciousness, which I've had experiences of. You've probably had experiences of. I mean, I'm interested in that stuff. It's a lot of the work of Joe Dispenza and how there's this whole field of possibility that is here now all the time, and it's where are we placing our attention. But I think that's also beautiful that as children we can, well, when we grow up we become like a certain person, like those, the brain is consolidating those synapses, but we also have a very potent opportunity to wake those things back up. And I feel like that's the journey of self actualization, self recognition, and authenticity.
Yes. And you were talking about Dr. Joe.
Yeah.
It's the great analogy of the wise fish swimming through the ocean. Swims by two young fish. Hey, boys, how's the water? Water, what's he talking about? That is consciousness. We are swimming in it.
Yeah.
All you and I right now, as we record this podcast, everything physical, non-physical, that's that.
Yep.
Filled. I think one of the tough things about this path for new people is there's so many words for the same thing.
Mm.
Consciousness, God, the field, quantum entanglement, this. And if you're coming in new with so many new voices coming in, I've spoken about this quite a bit with the last guests. There is access to a lot of information, but it's in a sense too much. There's too much confusion. If you don't have even a slight understanding of any of this, someone could say the same thing 6 times and you think it's 6 different things and you go off on 6 different directions, trying
Mm.
6 different techniques and just causing more noise. Like there's so many people out there trying to calm things, but I think it's actually doing the opposite right now.
Mm. Well, don't you think that's like it's important to have teachers?
I think that's the issue though right now because there are so many teachers.
Oh yeah. Well, I think that's true. I think that that's the whole part of what feels authentic to us, and
Mm-hmm.
that's the whole part of original medicine. Um, the idea behind original medicine is that yes, we're going to have a lot of teachers, but we all have to access our own inner wisdom, and that those have been the teachings that I've had through my life. Is like, how do I get to know what's important to me, what makes sense to me, and to eliminate all the other noise. Because I think you had like mentioned Akashic records the first time that we talked, and
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I've never experienced that. I don't know what that is all about. I think it's really cool, and I feel like there are so many teachings out there that are available and information that's available. But what, it's like that web of life I was talking about, the spider web. There's little spiders that can drop down, and this one's for me and that one's for that other person. It's like grasping onto something that is like that lights you up, that makes you feel like inspirational, hope, healing, that's something you can um I don't know, feel a sense of, I don't know, guidance by, and hold on to that and just like play with it. I think a lot of it is just like playing with these ideas and seeing what actually lands in your own consciousness and what changes you for good.
Yes. Yes. And one of the things I very much enjoy is I completely agree with what you're saying. There is a part of when we're left to our own devices, it kind of screws things up. So, the one great thing I very much enjoy is that natural shift of consciousness. There is a wave of consciousness that is naturally taking people to searching more. It's like as simple as a 22-year-old turning 23. There was no teacher needed. It was just 365 days of being 22, and now they turned 23. There was
Yeah.
no guidance. There was no teacher. And we play this game with the guidance and the teachers and our minds and everything else, but there's this natural shift that is taking humanity to, from what everyone's saying, a place we've never been. It seems like this shift is so powerful right now. That natural wave that's taking a third grader of consciousness to fourth or fifth grade. It's the people who are on
Mm-hmm.
the fence about working with someone like you
And up
and
leveling.
putting them over the fence and saying, okay, Megan, I I don't know what the hell you're talking about. I still think it's crazy, but there's something in me that says I want to do a session with you.
Yes.
So
Yes.
I'm
We're
very happy.
called, we're drawn. Yeah, absolutely.
I'm very happy that exists because that's the same natural tendency that brought me to my teacher rather than other self development. It brought me to a more spiritual side rather than walking on fire, which was my path.
Tell me more about that. Like literally walking on fire.
Well, the Tony Robbins stuff.
Oh, okay.
Man, I mean, I have a newfound respect for him just because of how many people he's helped and how many people he's drawn into his world to do
Yeah.
what he's done. I mean,
Yeah.
but for me, it was different. I I didn't want that. I tried a little bit with a few other coaches and teachers, but every one of them kind of said, "No, you need to go find someone different." And
Mm.
I had no clue what that meant, but as the
Yep.
universe was keeping an eye on me,
Yeah.
it introduced me to a very old man in the sauna who was naked, and
I love
painful.
it.
So
These are such good stories.
yeah, he's still around. He's 90 something years old.
Our teachers come in many forms, and sometimes, it's not the big people on the stage.
No, no, usually
My
not.
teachers are trees, birds, the sun. Those are things that I can access anytime, and they're not relationally dependent. I don't need another person to tell me who I am, but I've also been trained. I've also had teachers that have guided me in how to see this world as a teacher, to know that life is always working on our behalf, even when it's hard, even when there are challenges. They're there to galvanize us, strengthen us, to bring us more to love if we can open our hearts enough to it. And it's so necessary. I feel like what we're talking about, it's crucial that we do this work and that we follow these threads, these threads of meaning, because it's not one thing's going to work for everyone, but we need to find what's true for us. And it's not just small T truth, it's like big T truth. Big T truth, capital truth, is is going to resonate and make sense to everyone, because it's all brings us back to love and the one consciousness. But the reason we need it, I mean, there's fires in California right now. There's war, there's famine, there's genocide, there's all of this stuff happening in the world. And I think it's all a reflection of what's going on internally, always. Strife, it's the shadow. It's like something wants to be seen here and worked with and harmonized and balanced. And I feel like what we're doing is the way.
Before creation comes destruction.
That's right.
And the other thing that brings into my thought is that thread for some people could be materialistic. It could be a relationship, right? The discussions that we have on this podcast, it's a very small group of people.
Mm.
It's smaller than people would think. I mean, we spend a lot of time here, so we think it's bigger. But
Mm-hmm.
when you step back, the vast majority of people want to have an easier time paying their mortgage. They want to better understand their kid. They may be lonely. They may need help financially. And that's one thing that has shifted in me is I see a lot of people saying money doesn't buy happiness. For some, it does. And if that is what your sole purpose is, and that will fill that gap in this incarnation, they need to do that. Because when we speak of authenticity, that was my issue. My teacher is incredibly intelligent. My teacher is incredibly calm. 145, 50 pounds, little guy, like just this cool, calm, collect, powerful individual. I thought that was the way. I tried to be like that.
Mm.
That took me down a very, very, I don't want to wake up in the morning, dark path.
Oh.
Because as you can feel, like you can feel my energy, you can feel my aggression, you can feel
Mm.
my ambition. When I'm really my authentic self, I'm swearing, I'm pushy, I'm
Mm-hmm.
really bringing my energy forward to get whomever is in front of me to better understand a complex issue simply.
Mm.
And for those who are attracted to it, they come. But one of the things is maybe the soul's purpose in this incarnation was a relationship. Maybe that hole of that loneliness of needing a wife or a husband, maybe that's what, they're supposed to cross paths with that person to really advance their soul in this incarnation. So I used to be the same, where if you didn't meditate, you were screwing things up.
Mm.
If you didn't go this one way, you're screwing things up. But I was still, I would be against Catholicism and Jesus because they had their one way. And I'm saying, oh, it's not one way. It's, you need to do your own thing. But I'm over here doing the same thing with just a different teaching.
Uh-huh.
So we all have our blind spots, but spirituality and this linear path is for humans because that's all we know is time. But a lot of people don't give two shits about what we're talking about.
Mm.
And that's something I'm okay with now, because
Mm-hmm.
there's just different levels of consciousness on this planet, and we're not angry at an 8-year-old for being in second grade,
That's so true.
and a 16-year-old in 10th grade is not better than the 8-year-old. They're just different.
Yeah. It's not my job to know and understand what other people are doing, right? Like, I honestly don't really care. I mean, I care in the sense that um, because I have sort of that bodhisattva spirit. I'm a healer. I want all people to be free of suffering, and yet I can also leave my clinic and not think about all the things I have to do for the whole world. I do it for me. I do it for my own sense of peace and calm, but also passion, fire. I mean, I have a bit of that sort of aggressive personality too, but I also have a very calm demeanor, like underneath it all. So I think it's just like celebrate it all.
Yes. Uh, will you explain to people what bodhisattva is?
Oh, sure. I mean, the way I understand a bodhisattva is a being that has decided to come to this earthly plane and not leave, not go to heaven, not what's the samsara, not transition into holy consciousness. They're here as a human being until all beings have been alleviated of suffering. That's bodhisattva.
Beautiful. That's a powerful thing.
Yeah.
When was there something at a young age that shifted you? Was there something that happened, good or bad, that had you go down this path? Was this a lifelong transition, or was it
Right.
you were going down one direction and then at 18 something happened, or 25 something happened?
Yeah, I love that question. I've thought a lot about that before we talked. And as a child, I was always a seeker, always a seeker. Like in my little town of Idaho Falls, Idaho, um, there wasn't a lot in my home life that was talking about spirituality or church or anything godly. And so I sought it out. I went to church by myself as a lone person to the LDS church. And that's pretty rare. Usually everyone there was with their family and they had, you know, their people. And I walked across the field on most Sundays in my little dress and I would go to church. Um, it turns out that I never did get baptized in the Mormon faith. I do have family that is in it, but it wasn't my path. And I was diverted by a cousin of mine, and it wasn't fully supported within some of my family members. So I said, well, okay, I don't need to go full on into baptism. And then life carries on. Then partying kind of became my God. I loved partying. There's lots of, psychedelic drug use, there's alcohol, things that I was getting to know myself in that stage of my life. That was a very early 20s. And then I got into other like nastier kind of drugs, not for very long, but it was, I wasn't happy. I was getting into like some relationship issues without integrity. And, I went through a really dark time. That was like a really dark time. I was smoking a lot of weed. I was depressed. And I felt like, no, like I do not want this. This is not what I want in my life. So I moved away from that city. It was in Missoula at the time. And I went over to Bellingham, Washington, and I decided from there I was going to be truthful, I was going to be honest to my friends, the new friends I was going to make, and I was going to follow what was meaningful to me. And then I got into yoga, Bikram yoga, and from there I started singing kirtan and doing devotional singing, and I found a sense of belonging with people, and they became really good friends, and we'd travel around the Pacific Northwest and go visit Amma, the hugging saint from India. I had a really deep relationship with India, so I ended up traveling there for about 6 months. Meditation, yoga, mantra. And then I met my teacher, Shar. She's the one who I learned the shamanic medicine from. And she teaches from the lineage of Angeles Arian, who is this beautiful woman. She died far too soon, in my opinion. And she was a cross-cultural anthropologist who studied the medicines across the world. And she has a book called The Fourfold Way. In that book, she distills the information and the wisdom from all these different cultures where they are similar. And she made this book. And she taught these lessons to students that found her. And then I found one of her students named Shar. Shar taught me the beauty of ritual, taught me the beauty of ceremony. It was a self-development. There was lots of people that were attracted to her at that time. There were like 60 plus people in her class, and I followed her for 3 years. I mean, the story can go on, but really, I learned from her healing of self, visionary work, working with the drum, working with the rattle, working with tarot cards, and then also doing one-on-one readings with others, and deeper healing work called soul retrieval. And we've done house blessings, business blessings, and you can even take prayer into the land to heal a piece of this earth from whatever it had gone through. So really, it's those teachings have really anchored me into the connection of all of life, that we have communication with nature, and that we can access that at any time for our own healing or for the healing of others. And that's kind of where I stand now. Then I became an acupuncturist. I've worked with the cacao medicine. I do cacao ceremonies. Anything that like helps people who are interested like dive into a little bit of their own spirituality.
The psychedelic use,
Mm-hmm.
was that just when you were younger, so it was more recreational and just for fun, or did you?
In the beginning.
Was there anything that any experiences you've had with it that was transformational?
Ooh, yeah, very much. So I would say just with mushrooms, psychedelics, they were recreational at first. I've had some times that were not fun, and then I've had times with friends that are amazing and beautiful, and just kind of a reset, a remembrance of the connection of all of life and the magic of life. It gets pretty cool. And then I've done ayahuasca ceremonies, I've done kambo, and those are the things that I feel, I don't know if they're really my medicine to work with over and over again, but I feel like they have been just what I needed in that moment. But I think one of the most profound was an MDMA session that I've had with a therapist where it was guided. And she was there, I was in therapy on that medicine, and it is incredible the way that it feelings would come up in the body, and I'd be like, I feel cold, I feel a sense of metal. And she's like, where? And I'm like, right here. And then she'd say, well, explain it. What does it feel like, what does it have a meaning? And we would just explore these physical sensations that would come up. And I mean, that stuff is cool. It's gentle, it's loving, and then the brain would be flooded with this love feeling. So it was like these waves would come in of like kind of psychological surgery in a way that's showing up in bodily sensation, and then also deep feelings of rest, love, and death. to be honest. Like I feel like I died there. And those kind of things. Yeah, I feel like they have been transformative.
So many people who talk about the psychedelics, they will mention in passing that they felt death or they felt like they were dying, which is, I think, the number two fear in the world behind public speaking. So it's a pretty hard fear. Um, what does that feel like?
What is death? To me it felt calm, and I think it was because I was with my grandmother when she died. I'm not I wasn't there in the room when she crossed, but she was dying. She was leaving. She was there, and then she wasn't there. You know, the next time I saw her, but it was peaceful. So when I died in that, I pulled it up. I felt like I was in a coffin, and there, it was just peace, bliss. Felt amazing, actually.
There you go.
Yeah.
Ramana Maharishi said it's like pulling off an old shoe.
Pulling off an old shoe.
Yeah, that's how he described it.
Wow. That's cool. It's like the skin that we wear, the cloaks, right? Yeah.
I guess so. Just dropping the body.
Yeah.
Dropping the body.
And but I also feel that like we can do that without psychedelics. We can do it without entheogens, without medicines like that, which I think definitely have their place. But I think their usefulness is outrun if they're done too much. If we're trying to seek that state too often from something outside of ourselves, which I there's no judgment. Whoever is doing that stuff is getting things out of it. But I feel like this reality is where we practice what we've learned from those states of mind. But we can also access those states of mind just through a drum journey or a rattle. And those are things that I'm going to start teaching people.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, my teacher always continuously reminded me to not chase. And I was looking for a permanent state of consciousness, not an altered. So I've explored a few times. They haven't really done much for me. They made me realize that the discussions that I have with people while on psilocybin are the same discussions I have while I'm off. So not much change there. Um, but I was always seeking a permanent shift, not something that went out, came back to
Yeah.
reality, and something I needed to chase, which, like you said, it gets to the point where people are doing them monthly. Perfectly fine, but I don't know how much that impacts because I've known an individual who did over 100 ayahuasca journeys, and I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
Yeah,
like then the question is, what are you doing in waking life? Right? What are you doing with that? How are you
yeah,
bringing healing to yourselves or others? How are you making this place better? Um, yeah, I agree. And it's that, my teacher, Lonnie Jarrett, and I think Ken Wilber talks about this in Integral Practices of Life. It's that state change versus the stage of development shift. It's like state of mind versus up leveling stage of development.
it's a good way to look at it. That makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you've got the acupuncture. I know that you spoke about some clients you can talk about that with. Some clients just want to come in for that and get out. What is it that you want to start doing more of?
Mm,
What is it that you want to start teaching from your teacher? The
yeah.
stuff that Annie was telling me about that you really helped her with. Because if I remember correctly, she just woke up one morning and was deaf, right? Just completely lost her hearing. And that was the thing that you helped her with, kind of bring that back.
Yeah.
Did I remember?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. We worked with her with acupuncture, and I know she was doing hyperbaric, and they also did injections into the eardrum,
Wow.
which sounds crazy, I know. But they do that. It's a steroid. And then it wasn't that actually clued me in, if I can talk a little bit, vaguely about Annie, as this happens with most of the people I introduce my work to. They say something that it's like they're looking for something more. They're looking for more engagement from me and from life that acupuncture is not going to quite do within, a 1 hour session laying with needles.
Okay.
The acupuncture is very powerful in creating that state change within someone, but I really believe that the stage and level of development can really be shifted with the other work that I do, which is the shamanic work. Yeah.
Okay.
And so,
Explain that
yeah,
more.
yeah, I can explain that more. So there's a couple different ways and containers that I have when I'm working in the shamanic realms. One is called the cord cutting. And the cording that we can develop with people, whether it's old relationships, parents, let's just start the obvious ones, the relationships of like past lovers or something. If someone's hung up on an old relationship or unable to move on or continually talks about it, like, yeah, we can grieve. We're supposed to grieve things that die. We're supposed to learn the lessons from the things that aren't working for us anymore and to move on. But sometimes people can get stuck there and it's like not changing. So when I hear people start talking about this kind of stuff in a way that I'm like, I think you need a little more energetic help around this so that you can reclaim your sense of sovereignty and your sense of autonomy. And remember that you are the one that has the power. It's not that person. So that's where cord cutting comes in. And then cord cuttings can also morph into what's called soul retrieval. Soul retrieval is where I, as a practitioner, I am journeying to the drum beat. And it's that percussive drum beat that is consistent over a period of time that allows the brain, there's been studies on this, that the brain shifts into different brainwave patterns. And in those different brainwave patterns, we have access to more information than we are able to just with our conscious thinking minds.
Mm-hmm.
So we drop into a different state of mind, and then there's a place that we can ask questions like, what does this person need for healing right now? Where is this person? If I'm looking for a soul piece that maybe has zipped off from that person, maybe at age 4, maybe something difficult happened to them at sometime in their childhood, or maybe there was accidents or drug use or addiction, patterns of like relational patterns that keep happening over and over again. We clue into what that person really needs in an intake when we're having a conversation in the beginning. But then when the work starts, I leave it open to whatever magic comes. And that usually comes within the form of vision, the form of knowing, the form of like colors, or a movie would play before my eyes. And this whole time the drum beat is happening and I'm doing work. And it's not me, but it's like I've been trained to work with allies in that realm. So I have an pantheon of allies, animals and deities that help me do this work. And then I've also set up an altar that reminds me who I am. And I have my special stones. I have my special beads. I mean, and anything can be make up an altar. But also having the 4 elements there. But really the work is to restore wholeness to the person that I'm working with.
Get myself off mute there. The soul retrieval. How? What do people feel? What do people say after doing that work with you? Is it an instant relief? Is it an instant relief, or is it a we need another session? Do they feel part of their soul coming back into them, or is it so subtle that it's kind of just they just go on with life and things get better on such a subtle
Right.
level that they just move on. They don't even think about it anymore. It's not a loss. It's not something they don't have anymore.
Yeah, it can be all of those things, Charlie. It can be any number of ways that person has that it has landed for that person.
Okay.
Yeah.
And this shamanic way of soul retrieval, this is available to most anyone, but they need the teaching, they need the understanding, it needs to be an importance to them, right? It needs to be wherever their awareness points, that's what they're going to bring knowledge back for. So this has been an importance to you, which led to you finding that teacher, which led to you becoming an expert in a sense, better understanding this so that you can help others that don't have that ability. But we're all tapped into that same consciousness, we're all tapped into
Mm-hmm.
that same field. It's just that your awareness is to help these individuals who believe they don't have access to it.
Yeah, and I think it's an exploration. Like we're just about to teach a class. Sean and I, we're just about to teach a class. Not really a teaching, but it's a workshop. It's a drum journey workshop to introduce people to the art of drumming and the
Okay.
art of the journey. So yeah, it is accessible and available to everyone. You just need a time and place to meet with someone that can teach you a little bit about this stuff and to give you some basic guidelines of how to set your own safe container to do this kind of thing. And
Are
prayer is always, always, always the very first thing we start with. We honor the directions. We call in the energies of safety, and um, and we give gratitude and thanks for the helpers that are on their way.
are you able to do this at your shop, or is this something that is still not commonplace and you have to go off site or go to your house or go somewhere else other than the acupuncture
Mm-hmm.
shop?
No, I have a space that I can do this work in. This one in particular that we're teaching here coming up in February or March is at a yoga studio.
Okay.
So we've pitched to them, hey, this is something fun we want to do. And I have a good relationship with these folks anyway. So they're like, yeah, anything that brings value to their clientele, they're into. And so we pitched them with this drum journey and they're all about it. They're really excited about it.
How many people will show up to something like this?
I don't know. I mean, it could be 8, it could be 15, could be 30, just depending on who's interested in it at that time
And
and can come.
is this a first? Is this the teaching you're stepping into? Is this a first time for this?
This is the first time in this capacity. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we're really excited about it.
And the work.
And then there's a whole course though that I'm designing right now it's a 4 directions course, more like a 7 directions course that teaches for instance, Annie will be one of my students, and it'll teach just what I started out this podcast with. It teaches the principles of living as taught and guided by the 4 directions and Father Sky, Mother Earth, and Creator as the center of all things. So it's a well-designed course that kind of creates structure to all of these teachings, if
Yeah,
you
that
will.
that seems to be an important thing for most. Just giving structure, right? The only tool we've ever used is the mind. The mind loves structure. It wants classes. It wants time frames. It wants linear. It wants,
Yep.
so yeah, the ability to put that class together. Um,
Yep.
the work you did with Annie, that was that a first for what you were doing, for what you were working with?
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I've been doing this work for over 2 decades. And
Oh,
it's really now I have the opportunity to do this type of work in my clinic and to offer it to more people. So throughout the years, I've offered it when it comes up. It also takes a lot of energy from me as a practitioner because these things can be upwards of 3 to 4 hours
mm,
that you're meeting with me. And traditionally, I was trained to do it with a drummer and myself as the journeyer, and then we have the person there that's coming for the healing.
okay.
So I would like to eventually work with Sean a little bit more, where we're doing these things together. But right now, in the past, I would say 5 years, we've been cultivating our own practices as doctors and getting that established in Salt Lake City because we're transplants here.
Could you explain more? Did you call it the four directions?
Yeah.
What are the four directions?
East, south, west, and north.
Oh, it's that simple, huh? Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. It's
Okay.
part of the Native American medicine wheel.
Okay. And well, there was something you were talking about 15, 20 minutes ago about the book that lady,
Yes, the fourfold way.
the fourfold way.
That
What is that?
that is very much oriented to the four directions as well.
Oh, well, this is easy. These questions are being answered very simply. Okay, great.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. I was thinking for some, go off on a 20-minute tangent with some magical talk there, but yeah, the four directions, that makes it easy.
There's a lot of magic in it, like
Just
once you get
simplicity.
into it all, there's a lot to go on, but it's all very practical stuff. Like
Yes.
I'm not interested in the whoa, like the woo woo stuff is amazing, and I'm not shy about any of it because it transcends all space and time, right? But it's kind of like the teachings, they're very practical. They're just ways to live, to be a good human, to have inspiration, to feel like there's more to life than this all the time. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? Just our
Mhm.
minds. That's a boring place sometimes.
Yeah, very busy place, very chaotic place.
Yeah,
The Native Americans, all this stuff that you're working with, was this inspired by them, by their teachings, by their ways?
big time. Yeah. So my teacher Shar, she's an adopted Lakota, into a Lakota family. So
Okay.
she grew up with a Lakota father and a Lakota mother, but she also has her birth parents. And so I'm very close with this family. So Shar and her mom, and I was really close with her brother back in the day. These folks, beautiful souls, they walk the red road. And the red road comes straight from the Lakota tradition. And along the red road, there are various ceremonies that guide us as humans through life. And one of those is the sweat lodge. And the sweat lodge is a purification ceremony that we should be doing every month. And that just helps us clear off what isn't ours, to pray for what we want more of in our lives, to pray for our families, for our loved ones, to bring healing to self and others and this earth. So that's the sweat lodge. And then there's the vision quest. And the vision quest is a hamblecha. Hamblecha means cry for a vision. So that's where you take yourself into the woods and you plant yourself in a place for 4 nights and for 3 days. And there's no food, no water. It's a fasting journey. So you're out there completely sober and you're there to pray. So I've done upwards of 5 or 6 of those in my history.
Okay. Well, the only thing I know about that is the Yellowstone.
Oh, is that the movie, the
Yeah,
show?
the show. One of the sons did that.
Oh yeah, go
They,
out in
they,
your blanket.
yep. He
You
had his
have the
blanket.
hachuka.
He had a square,
Yep,
and
the
he
square of
just
prayer ties.
and he was
Hmm.
there for the 4 nights and 3 days. No food, no water, no one, out in the middle of nowhere, and he had some
Yeah,
visions. And you've done 5 of those.
yeah, yep.
Holy hell! Is it here up in the mountains in Utah or Idaho, Wyoming? Where?
No, I would love to vision here in Utah. That would be amazing. I have some opportunity to do it. You need an intercessor for that ceremony. So in the Lakota tradition, there is one who has been past an altar to be able to carry this ceremony for the people. So the person I am close with at this time, her name is Matilda, and her spirit, her medicine name is Laughing Waters, and she's this amazing 78-year-old woman. I've pretty much grown up with her in the last 2 decades, and she's the one that puts us up on the hill. That's what that's called.
Okay.
And so when I would do this, there's many other people doing this, upwards of 15 people, that if we have a piece of land that we're safe, to do this on. You can do this anywhere out in the wilderness, but for a group like this, it's usually the Pacific Northwest, or we've done it out on the Olympic Peninsula, in the rainforest out there. You find peace. I mean, I'm getting maybe a little bit too detailed about this, but you ask the land, "Can I pray here?" And if you get a yes, then you can set up your site right there. And there's a whole thing going back on at base camp where there's a fire that's going for 4 days. There's a kitchen that we've set up outside that people are being fed. We're not eating as a visionary, but the people who are working to keep this ceremony going and keep it safe are there and having a good time in camp.
Is camp close to the people who are losing their minds and starving and not having water for 3 to 4 days, or are they
It's
off?
close enough. You can like smell the bacon sometimes if you've
Oh,
chosen your site that close to camp. But I've chosen sites that are far away where I don't see or hear anybody. I don't hear the crackling of the fire at night, but those things can be a little bit comforting. But trust me, you will feel alone no matter how close you are to anyone. And that is the magic of this ceremony. You will receive what you need no matter what. And it's hard. It's called a warrior's quest for a reason. It's very difficult.
very ignorant question here. What about animals? What about the weather? What about do you have a tent? Or are you just like in the Yellowstone one? He was just in a square with a few of his possessions and a blanket. No tent, nothing. Is
Mm-hmm.
is that what you're doing?
Yep.
Holy
No
shit!
tent. You have a tarp if it rains. You can cover with the tarp. You can drink the water if it comes in your hichoka. That's the only way you're ever going to get water is if Creator lets it rain on you, and you can get a little bit that way. I've done that, by the way. It was very satisfying. But yeah, you have a tarp, you have a wool blanket. A wool blanket won't keep you dry, but it will keep you warm.
So I guess that's why a lot of the times they're doing it in the Northwest because it's rainy up there.
No, they do it down in Arizona. Yeah, they'll do. There's so many different types of vision quests. I mean, I've heard of ones that, well, people will go in the ground. They will literally dig a grave and they'll lay in that for the 4 days, so you're in complete darkness. You can vision inside of a sweat lodge. You can vision with a tent and a journal and water. And I know a teacher that's doing it that way. He's also a descendant, I say, a disciple or a student of Angelus Arian named Patrick O'Neill. So he does healing vision quests, and they're not the warrior quests that I'm talking about. But then there's also ones I've heard of down in Arizona that you go into the earth somehow. I don't know. I don't really know that one. Or you're out in the desert. There's a lot. Just no matter where you are on this earth, you can do a vision quest there.
Is it always 4 days or 4 nights, 3 days?
I think traditionally, I think.
No food, no water, 4 days, 3 nights. And I assume the people around are there just so nothing, no one really gets hurt. I assume. Or the
Yeah,
people
they're
might get
there
hurt.
to, that you've got the fire tenders. You've got, sometimes there's a group of 4 people that are tending the fire, consistently for all day, all night. So we take shifts. I've been on fire multiple times too. So sometimes I'll be the quester, sometimes I'll be the fire tender, or I'm cooking in the kitchen. Um, Though, yeah, we're there to sort of hold the anchor for the ceremony, to keep it safe, to keep it joyous, to keep it loving. And also, we do our own sweat lodges during those times too. So
Hmm.
our teachers will come down and they'll pour a lodge for us, healing lodge, or we'll do coming of age ceremonies for the children. So the kids are a very huge part of this.
Okay.
We drum and we sing songs, and um, we pray in the lodges. We'll do like children's lodges where it's not very hot. We don't make it all the way dark. Um, So another idea that it brings up to me is that in the Lakota tradition, and I think a lot of traditions around the world, for prayer and for getting out of the way, we talked about being that hollow little bone. Like, how do we get out of our own way? They often do that through ritual of suffering that cause suffering, whether that be in the sweat lodge. The sweats can be very, very hard. It can be very, very hot. But if it's hot, pray harder. Um, the vision quest, you're out there dwindling down to, a little bit of muscle and bone. You're losing weight out there. Your mind is challenged. Um, Pray harder. Those are that is really the thing that keeps you going, is is the power of prayer in those moments, from what I've found. I mean, there's the Sundance that I support out in Pine Ridge Reservation. Char's family has graciously invited me back year after year to help with the Sundance ceremony. I won't get too into that, just to respect the cultural integrity around that. I am not Lakota, but I have been attracted to these ways for the last 15, 20 years, and so I show up and I serve and I help and I do what's necessary to help that ceremony survive and to keep going.
Is this unique to Native Americans? This, I mean, 4 days, 4 nights, 3 days, no food, no water, out in the open, square. What have actually? Let's just stick with that question because then I have another one. Is that just common to them? Is that just unique to them?
I feel like that's where I've heard it being practiced the most. Yeah, not just Lakota, but Navajo as well. They just have different names for these things. I don't think the Navajo call it humblecha, but they have a different word for it.
I'm sure this is maybe it's something you don't want to share. What have you experienced during one of these sessions?
Hmm. I think, again, without getting into too much detail, it's sort of like a dissolution of mind, a dissolution of self, and you're really brought down to the bare bones of who you are, and I guess who you're not. But yeah, I mean, I've had sometimes I'll go out, I'll feel called to do another vision quest. Like, I haven't done one in about 2 years, 2 or 3 years, but I'll be called again, and I'll be like, no, I don't want to. Because they're hard, but it's like, but you're ready for it. You have questions. You've lived life a little bit, and now you're like you're at a new threshold of growth. And so I haven't heard the call yet, but when I do, I'll do it and I'll prepare. And there's a whole long preparation that it takes to get ready for something like this. And so that is when the work starts. That's when the teachings come, is within the preparation of doing something like this. Once you're out on that hill, you can relax, honestly. You're out there alone. There's nothing to do anymore. You're just out there to be. And you get to know the little creepy crawlers that come visit you. You get to have animal sightings depending on where you're at in the land. I know people. I've seen deer. They're very loud. They crunch the ground. I've seen coyotes just yip, and like they're like really cute, and they're like little teenage boys. These coyotes are so funny. They run around the land and they just yip and holler, and you know when they see you, they're very curious. They're like, what are you doing here? Like, it's funny. But I've had people, there's experience of cougars, there's experience of moose, of bear. I haven't been lucky enough to have those sightings, but it happens.
What type of questions arise to make someone feel like this is what they want to do? Just those deep, universal, who am I type of questions? Are they unique to the individual or?
I think they're unique. I feel that someone may just feel a deep inauthenticity to their own life, and they want a big experience to teach them what to do about it.
Okay.
or big questions, or maybe someone has lost someone really dear to them and life is just so different that they need to remember who they are without this person. And that's one example.
Wow, we are complex creatures, aren't we?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's one thing that this is the first. This is I'm glad we did this because a lot of people have talked about ayahuasca, the couple weeks leading up to that, the 12 hours of going through it, but 4 nights, 3 days, nothing. Wow,
Yeah.
wow, that's
Yeah,
incredible. That's
it'll
incredibly
break
powerful.
you. It'll break you, but it'll break you open, right?
I would assume that's yeah. Holy shit. Okay, um,
Yeah.
give me a sec here. I don't mind the pauses. What else? What else comes to your mind that you would like to speak about? Because that last thing, that's almost that's like something to end on. Because that's holy holy shit.
I don't know.
I have so many questions that are just on the tip of my tongue. What what is it about the Native Americans that make them so unique and special to this kind of their connection to the earth, their connection to animals, their connection to water, their connection to spirit, like they seem to be the it might be ignorant, but are they the originals when it comes to this? Is this something that all other cultures have learned from them? Buddhist, Hindu, whatever. It seems like they seem to have a unique place in this spiritual realm that has been kept very not private because they talk about it when they want to, but it's not something everyone's really attracted to. Right? It's not talked about as much as Hindu and Buddhism because here in the West, we got Mormonism, we got Catholicism, we got atheism, and then if that doesn't work, we go east. Like the next linear step for most individuals in the West is to go east, and that
Yeah.
is better. But the Native American stuff just seems so incredibly powerful, and it's just sitting out there for everyone to learn. But it's a rare occurrence when people talk about it. They seem to have they seem to have a very unique connection to all of this that is unexplainable in a sense.
Yeah, I really love that you're saying that because it helps me see the uniqueness of my path and that not a lot of people get to see what I see or have like as a white woman coming into like being invited by a family to come to their family Sundance or to have found the teacher that I found that has uniquely designed her teachings from her own life experience. Um, to me, it's like it makes me want to cry when I think about it with what you're saying. It's just like I'm so deeply touched and moved by the truth of what you're saying because I know this way so intimately. I know it so deeply. And I also have learned that within the Lakota language itself and the prayers in Lakota, I'm also a songkeeper, so I sing a lot of Lakota songs in the Sweat Lodge, and all they're talking about is gratitude and love and thanks. And thanks for the buffalo, thanks for the eagle, thanks to the kolas, the to the friends that come help me. I'm pitiful. I'm a pitiful human being. Thank you for coming and helping and being my friend. It is so beautiful. And, a lot of the Native Americans have also lost their way. there's a lot of poverty, there's a lot of drug use, a lot of alcoholism on the reservations. Luckily, a lot of them still have some land. I think that's quite a beautiful thing that they have reservations because it connects them to a sense of who they are. You know, it's definitely dwindled in the amount of space that they've had. If you take the Black Hills, for instance, that is Lakota land. And, um, you know, they're constantly fighting to protect what is rightfully theirs. If I could do more, I would. I think that's another part of this is like, how can I do more for those people? They've given me so much. They, in the way of their ceremonies, their lifestyle, their love. Um, I'm very money driven. I love big money. You know, it's not like I've come into big money. Like I like to create it. I like to explore how to invite more monetary abundance into my life. And a lot of that is so that I can give it away, so that I can help others. So it gives me more opportunity to do what somebody else may not be able to do for themselves. Um, and really, this is like when I go support the ceremonies. Is like I'm bringing cook stoves, I'm bringing tables, I'm bringing food, along with the the people who are coming with me, our group coming from the Pacific Northwest, from Utah, wherever we live now. We're bringing a lot of our resources there to help this ceremony, and I believe that it's written in the prophecies that we all must come together, all colors of people, the white, the yellow, the red, the black. We're all here to become a one human nation, and we can do that through preserving these ancient technologies and these ceremonies. That is one way.
Ancient technologies. Explain.
Sure, we have computers, we have technology to communicate, we have tech and AI, and we have robots, and we have all these things that can make our lives better, but it can also destroy us. But there's also technologies of um, that connect us to creator, that connect us to a higher power, that connect us to something that, like nothing, um, how to put this, there's so much going on in the unseen world that is that is helpful to us if we just call on it. And I feel like instead of calling my mom on this technological phone, I can call to my ancestors, I can call to my allies, I can call to my spiritual guides through prayer and through ceremony and ritual like this that is also a technology.
I would agree. I just I love to hear that explained differently by different people because that's AI phone. I mean, the fact that we have an iPhone here and that we can dial a number and within a second, when we hit that last number, be connected to multi-billion people. All of this technology is just getting closer and closer to consciousness.
Yeah.
Those who are really, really tapped in naturally or working on it, yeah, they don't need a phone. Telepathy, remote
Mm-hmm.
viewing. Remote viewing is such a big deal, and that Monroe Institute does so much work with the common man. That one, I don't remember his name, but he was a very famous remote viewer, and the Monroe Institute takes in 30 people a week or so for classes, and the only thing they do for those people, and they could have no clue what consciousness is, have no clue what remote viewing is, but they were brought by a friend or brought by curiosity. The first thing they do is they give them a number. They'll say B43, and they'll tell them to sit down. And that B43 is the number of an envelope that's in a safe in a different room. And he says that the people who are the first time to remote viewing, 80%, 85, he said that it's just a very high percentage of people will guess what's in that envelope. Um, and
Wow.
that to me, like what you're talking about, talking to our ancestors, the people who see different dimensions, the people who hear telepathically, the people who have experiences with other beings, the ceremonies, it's all just consciousness.
Mhm.
There are people who are more tapped in, just like there's better basketball players than others.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
It's, we make it magical. We don't talk about it as much, so it's not as normal. So when people do talk about it, it's this realm of impossibility. But consciousness is the fish. What the hell's water?
Mhm.
What the hell's water?
Mhm.
It's we are swimming in it day in and day out. So yeah, like you said, this technology is just elementary uses of consciousness, even though we think it's very, very high tech. When people talk about the technology we do have from other beings, the ships they see that just shoot up 50,000 miles in the air, and it's just immediate, right? Everything they have retrieved is these ships that are guided by consciousness. Everything is consciousness. And the more we advance, we're just getting closer and closer and closer to what the great sages, probably
Mhm.
what the Native Americans already know, of just tapping
Mhm.
into an innate ability that all 8 billion people have. Some are just cut off. Some
Yeah.
are just cut off from it. Well, most are cut off from it. I'm cut off from it. I don't have as much as I've had my teacher, and I've seen these things, and I've talked to people like you and everyone across the world of the levitation, the things people can do.
Mhm.
I've never had an experience. I can
Mhm.
transcend very well. I can meditate, transcend, and be gone for 3 hours in the blink of an eye.
Mhm.
But I've never felt anything. I've never seen anything. I've never heard voices. And that was my path, because I think the universe knew that if I did, I would have chased that till the ends of the earth, and that would have been my only focus, was to, I want to see that again. I want to see that again. I want to see that
Mhm.
again. How can I tap in more? How can I tap in more? Mine has always been the ability to understand the whole and talk about it in a very simple way, so that the common man who's fearful of it is not so fearful of it. And if they're not so fearful of it, they may come to talk to someone like you more. They may be okay with
Mhm.
consciousness. They may be okay with meditation. They may be okay with the Akashic records when they weren't. They may be okay stepping outside of their religion and asking different questions when someone who may look like them or may have a business background like them talks about it in such a normalized way, like you and I are talking.
Yeah. Yep.
So, yeah,
Yes.
it's all just consciousness.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
absolutely. I do have a question for you, real quick,
yes.
about your transcendental meditation.
Okay.
And if is that what you call it? Because you mentioned
Yes.
you have the ability to transcend. Is it TM as they call it?
In a sense, yes. Yes.
Okay. Now what? Because undoubtedly that has informed your work.
So the thing I loved about it, the thing why psychedelics didn't do it for me, my path was to tap into that absolute,
Mm.
because every single ounce of knowledge that the Native Americans have, that the Hindus have, that we have, that universal, worldly, human, other entities, galaxies, it's the field.
Yeah.
It's consciousness, it's God, it's the source, it's that infinite library. Everything we've ever thought, everything we've ever written about, everything we've ever spoken about, everything we've ever had a theory about, every sci-fi movie that, as usual, comes true 10 years down the road. Where does it come from? That
Right.
was my biggest awakening with my teacher in that work.
Cool.
I It all comes from the same source. So to me, transcending is a very powerful thing, because whatever your intention is, whatever your awareness is pointed, you
Yes.
drop into the absolute. And when you come back to the body, you bring that with you.
Yeah.
And I saw that directly, because my teacher would tell me something so
Yep.
high level. And I was like, there's no way I'm going to learn that. 2 weeks later, after that, being consistent, I'd be like, oh, okay.
All
I
right.
would I would watch videos of what Adyashanti and Ramana and those guys would say, and kind of understand it. 2 weeks, a month later, I'd be like, oh, okay, there's a deeper meaning to that. And then a year later, oh, there's an even deeper meaning to that.
Oh, cool.
But to me, like with psychedelics, I know how powerful they are. But with psychedelics, people can say, I saw a different dimension. I saw different beings. I flew. I astral projected. I was out of body, whatever. That means the individual still had an experience at the mental level.
Mm.
So there's still a part of that ego. There's still a part of a filter that's not 100% pure. So I was very attracted to an ability to go past the mind
Mm-hmm.
and be like those 1 hour, 2 hour, 3 hours, or 20 minutes or 30 minutes. There's no experience. I can't come back and tell you, wow, that felt good, or I saw
Mm.
this.
Like
No,
you got to nothing.
even saying nothing is still a construct. I'm legitimately saying when you
You
start
didn't exist.
and you come out and you're like, oh man, that was a good 2 minutes, and you're like, holy shit, it's been 3 hours.
Nice.
Because the difference there, Jerry Seinfeld made a good joke about it. Because people will always say, well, what's the difference between that and sleeping? He said, next time you get up from sleeping, get up from bed, turn around, and tell me if that looks comfortable. Tell me that looks like you guys were just relaxing. Like the sheets are everywhere, the pillows everywhere, shit's off the sheets are on the ground. Does it look like you were just relaxing? No, you're dreaming, you're moving
Yep.
around, you're getting up and going to the bathroom. When you do a meditation like that, most people will come out and say, I feel like I just had a 10-hour nap.
Mm.
Because you go in and you come out like I just sit up straight. You don't move.
Mm-hmm.
You're not twitching. You're not like
Yep.
your bodily functions are shutting down to such a calmness, because that's what they love about the nervous system, because you are purifying the nervous system. You're strengthening it because you are removing all of what you put into it, your existence.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like the NASA study, all the stuff that
Mm.
gives you anxiety, the fears, the worries. The going past the mind to me is very, very key for people
Yeah.
for whatever they choose to do. And the one thing that I have brought back into it is, let's give that tool to the VP of sales that needs to figure out new techniques so they can better support their
Mm-hmm.
family. Let's give
Yeah.
that to the CEO or the executives. Let's give that to the common man who wants to better understand what their kids are doing.
Yes.
So that to me is just like with your stuff. To me, that's very powerful stuff.
Yes. Agreed.
So
Yeah.
okay, we've been going hour and 15. I know you've got a call at 11:30.
Mm-hmm.
I have one last question for you.
Sure.
What is truth to you?
Wow. That's a good one. That's such a big question. It's hard to even answer. I feel like because you know what's true to me is not true for everyone, but yet there is also ultimate truth. So it's the ultimate paradox, and I feel like that's where spirit resides.
Beautiful. That's why I love that last question. There's almost always a pause, and everyone's answer is different.
Hmm.
So that's the whole point of truth has no sides. So that's a good thing. I like
I
that.
love it.
I love that.
Cool, man.
Megan, thank you. I'm sure we could continue to talk, but that seems like a good end because of how I love the last 30 minutes of you discussing those ceremonies, the Native Americans, their connection, because you're the first of the guests talking about the Native Americans, talking about their powers, talking about their abilities, their their connection to everything. So this was a great
Mm.
conversation. So thank you.
It's my holy privilege. Thank you so much. Thank
Thank
you,
you, Megan.
Charlie. Thank you for doing what you're doing.
We will get this edited up, and I will let you know.
Very good. All right. Have a great day.
Thanks, Megan. You too.
Thanks. Bye bye.